Emma and the Magical Forest Adventure. Chapter 1, The Mysterious Invitation. It was a calm Saturday afternoon when Emma received a strange letter. The letter was written on thick, old-fashioned parchment, and the writing was in elegant, looping cursive. "Mom. Look what I found in the mailbox." Emma called, running into the kitchen where her mom was preparing lunch. Her mom turned around, wiping her hands on a towel. "What's that, sweetie?" "I don't know. It's a letter, but it doesn't look like a normal letter." "It's all fancy and old-fashioned," Emma said, holding it out. Her mom took the letter, her eyebrows raised in curiosity. She carefully opened the envelope and pulled out the letter inside. As she read it, her face lit up with surprise. "Well, it says here that you've been invited to a special adventure in the magical forest," her mom said, handing the letter back to Emma. "The magical forest? Is that a real place?" Emma asked, her eyes wide with wonder. "I've heard stories about it, but I've never been there myself," her mom said with a smile. "The invitation says you can go tomorrow morning. It's a special adventure just for you." Emma was bursting with excitement. A magical forest adventure sounded like the most amazing thing ever. She spent the rest of the day dreaming about what kind of creatures she might meet and what kind of magic she might see. Chapter 2, Into the Magical Forest. The next morning, Emma woke up early, dressed in her favorite adventure clothes, a pair of sturdy jeans, a bright blue shirt, and her trusty sneakers. She packed her small backpack with essentials, a water bottle, a snack, her notebook, and her favorite pencil. Her mom drove her to the edge of town, where the magical forest was said to begin. The entrance to the forest was marked by a large wooden archway with intricate carvings of animals and plants. As Emma stepped under the arch, she felt a tingle run down her spine. The forest ahead was filled with towering trees, their branches creating a canopy of green leaves. The sunlight streamed through in dappled patches, casting a magical glow on the path ahead. "Wow," Emma whispered to herself, her heart racing with excitement. She walked along the winding path, the sound of birds chirping and leaves rustling filling the air. The deeper she went into the forest, the more magical it felt. The trees seemed to whisper secrets, and she thought she saw the occasional flicker of light, like tiny fairies darting through the trees. After walking for what felt like an hour, Emma came to a clearing. In the center of the clearing stood a large, ancient tree with a hollow in its trunk. Sitting at the base of the tree was a creature Emma had never seen before. It was about the size of a cat but had the face of a fox and the wings of a bird. Its fur was a shimmering gold, and its eyes sparkled with intelligence. "Hello, Emma," the creature said in a soft, musical voice. "I've been waiting for you." Emma's jaw dropped in astonishment. "You can talk?" "Of course I can talk," the creature replied with a grin. "My name is Solis, and I am your guide for this adventure." Chapter 3, The Journey Begins. Solis led Emma deeper into the forest, guiding her along secret paths and through sparkling streams. As they walked, Solis explained the history of the magical forest. "This forest is home to many mystical creatures," Solis said. "Some are friendly, and well, some are not so friendly. But don't worry, I'll make sure you're safe." Emma was filled with questions. What kind of creatures live here? Will I get to meet them? You'll meet some of them, yes. There are talking animals, fairies, and even a few dragons, Solis said with a wink. But there's one creature in particular that we're going to see today, the great owl. The great owl? Emma repeated. What's that? The great owl is the wisest creature in the forest. It sees everything and knows everything. If you have any questions about the forest or the world beyond, the great owl can answer them, Solis explained. They continued walking, and Emma marveled at the wonders around her. She saw flowers that glowed with their own light, butterflies with wings that shimmered like rainbows, and squirrels that chattered in a language she could almost understand. Chapter 4: The Fairies' Meadow. After a while, they came to a beautiful meadow filled with flowers of every color imaginable. The air was sweet with the scent of blossoms, and in the center of the meadow was a group of tiny, glowing creatures, fairies. Emma gasped in delight as the fairies flew around her, their wings sparkling like diamonds. They giggled and whispered as they danced through the air, leaving trails of light behind them. "Hello, little ones." Solis called out to the fairies. The fairies giggled again and flew closer, circling around Emma. "Who's this?" one of the fairies asked in a high-pitched voice. "This is Emma, our guest from the outside world," Solis said. "She's on a special adventure." "Oh!" the fairies chorused, their eyes wide with wonder. One of the fairies, a tiny girl with lavender wings, flew up to Emma's face. "Welcome to our meadow, Emma. Would you like to see something magical?" Emma nodded eagerly. "Yes, please." The fairies all giggled and clapped their hands. Then, with a flick of their tiny wands, the flowers in the meadow began to glow even brighter. The petals shimmered with colors Emma had never seen before, shades of pink, blue, and purple that seemed to shift and change as she watched. "Wow!" Emma exclaimed. "That's amazing." The fairies danced and twirled, their laughter filling the air as they continued to perform their magical show. Emma felt like she was in a dream, surrounded by so much beauty and wonder. After a while, Solis gently tugged on Emma's sleeve. "We need to continue our journey, Emma. The great owl is waiting." Emma waved goodbye to the fairies, who waved back with cheerful smiles. She couldn't wait to see what other magical things awaited her in the forest. Chapter 5: The Enchanted River. As they walked further into the forest, the sound of rushing water grew louder. Soon, they came to the edge of a wide, sparkling river. The water was crystal clear, and fish with shimmering scales swam just beneath the surface. "This is the Enchanted River," Solis said. "It's said that the water has special powers. Some say it can heal, others say it can reveal hidden truths." Emma knelt down by the water and dipped her hand in. The water was cool and refreshing, and as she looked into the river, she saw something amazing. Instead of just her reflection, she saw images of the past, moments from her life flashing by like scenes from a movie. She saw herself learning to ride a bike, her first day of school, and even moments she had forgotten, like a picnic she had with her family when she was very young. "Wow!" Emma whispered, mesmerized by the images. Solis smiled. "The river shows the truth of who you are and where you've been. It's a reminder of all the good things in your life." Emma stood up, feeling a sense of peace wash over her. She hadn't realized how much she had grown and changed over the years. The river had shown her that she was strong and capable, and it filled her with confidence for the adventure ahead. Chapter 6: The Dragon's Lair. As they left the river behind, the forest began to change. The trees grew taller and thicker, and the air became cooler. Solis led Emma up a steep hill, and at the top, they came to the entrance of a large cave. Inside the cave, Emma could see the faint glow of firelight flickering on the walls. "Is this where the great owl lives?" Emma asked, a little nervous. "No, this is the home of Draconis, the forest's guardian dragon," Solis said. "Don't worry, Draconis is friendly. Most of the time." Emma's heart raced as they stepped into the cave. The air was warm, and the sound of the dragon's deep breathing echoed through the chamber. At the back of the cave, lying on a pile of glittering treasure, was the largest creature Emma had ever seen. Draconis was a magnificent dragon with scales that shimmered in shades of red and gold. His eyes glowed like embers, and smoke curled from his nostrils. "Who enters my lair?" Draconis rumbled in a deep voice. "It is I, Solis, and my friend Emma," Solis said calmly. We seek the wisdom of the great owl. Draconis raised his head and looked down at Emma with curiosity. A human child? It's been many years since a human has entered the magical forest. Emma swallowed hard, trying to keep her voice steady. I am on a special adventure. Solis is guiding me. The dragon's eyes softened. Ah, I see. You are brave to come this far, little one. Not many would dare to. Chapter 7, The Wisdom of Draconis. Emma stood quietly as Draconis, the great dragon, observed her with his fiery eyes. She could feel the warmth radiating from his enormous body and the power in his voice. Despite her initial fear, there was something calming about being in the presence of such an ancient and wise creature. You are on an adventure, child, Draconis rumbled softly. But you are also here for something more. Every traveler in this forest seeks wisdom, whether they know it or not. So, tell me, what is it that you truly seek? Emma thought for a moment. She had come on this adventure excited to see the magical creatures and experience something new, but now, standing in front of the mighty dragon, she realized there was more she wanted. I want to understand more about myself, Emma said quietly. I've always felt like I'm not sure who I am or what I'm supposed to do. I want to know what makes me special. Draconis nodded slowly. A noble quest. Every person has something unique within them, something that only they can bring to the world. But the path to discovering it is long and filled with challenges. Solis stepped forward. The great owl will help you find your answers, Emma. But Draconis is right, the journey is just as important as the destination. Emma looked up at Draconis, feeling braver now. Thank you for your wisdom, she said sincerely. The dragon smiled. Smoke curling gently from his nostrils. Go forth, Emma, with courage and an open heart. And remember, the strength you seek has always been within you. With that, Draconis lowered his massive head and gently nudged her forward. Solis motioned for Emma to follow him, and they left the dragon's lair, continuing their journey toward the heart of the forest. Chapter 8, The Great Owl's Perch. After leaving Draconis behind, the landscape of the magical forest began to change once again. The trees became taller, their branches stretching high into the sky, and the air was filled with the sound of rustling leaves and distant bird calls. We're getting close, Solis said. The great owl's perch is just ahead. As they walked, Emma couldn't help but feel a growing sense of anticipation. She had heard so much about the great owl, and now she was about to meet the wisest creature in the entire forest. Finally, they reached a massive oak tree in the center of a wide clearing. Its trunk was so large that it seemed to touch the sky, and its branches were thick with leaves. At the very top of the tree, perched majestically, was the great owl. The owl was enormous, with feathers as white as snow and eyes as deep as the night sky. It gazed down at Emma with a serene, all-knowing expression. Welcome, young traveler, the great owl said, its voice soft but powerful. I have been expecting you. Emma took a deep breath. I've come to ask for your wisdom, she said, her voice trembling slightly. The great owl nodded. I can see that you have many questions. Ask, and I will answer. Emma hesitated for a moment, then spoke. I want to understand who I am and what makes me special. How do I find that out? The owl's eyes glimmered with understanding. The answer to your question is not something that can be found in a single moment or place. It is something that you must discover through your experiences, your choices, and your heart. Each step you take on your journey reveals a piece of who you are. But how will I know when I've found it? Emma asked. You will feel it, the great owl replied. It will be a sense of belonging, a feeling of purpose that only you can fulfill. And remember, what makes you special is not always what others see, it's what you carry within. Emma stood quietly for a moment, letting the owl's words Chapter 9, The Gift of the Forest. As Emma prepared to leave, the great owl spoke again. "Before you go, there is something I wish to give you." From its perch, the owl lifted one of its large, feathered wings. A single white feather floated down gently, landing in Emma's hands. "This feather is a symbol of your journey," the great owl explained. "It is a reminder that even though the path ahead may be long, you have the strength and wisdom within you to find your way." Emma held the feather close, feeling its softness against her skin. "Thank you," she said gratefully. "You are always welcome here, Emma," the great owl said kindly. "Whenever you need guidance, the forest will be waiting." Solis smiled at Emma as they left the clearing. "You've done well, Emma. Not everyone is brave enough to ask the great owl for wisdom." Emma smiled back, feeling a new sense of confidence. She didn't have all the answers yet, but she knew she was on the right path. And that was enough. Chapter 10, Home Again. The journey back through the magical forest felt different. Emma noticed more details than she had before: the way the sunlight filtered through the trees, the songs of the birds in the branches, the way the forest seemed to hum with life. She felt more connected to everything around her, as if she was a part of the magic itself. When they reached the edge of the forest, Solis turned to her. "This is where we part ways, Emma. But remember, the magic of the forest is always with you, no matter where you go." Emma nodded, feeling a pang of sadness at saying goodbye. "Thank you for everything, Solis. I'll never forget this adventure." Solis smiled warmly. "Neither will I. Farewell, Emma, until we meet again." With one last wave, Solis disappeared into the forest, leaving Emma standing at the edge. She took a deep breath and stepped back through the archway, returning to the familiar world of home. As she walked back to her house, Emma felt a sense of peace. She didn't need to rush to find out who she was or what made her special. She knew that the journey was just as important as the destination, and she was excited to see where it would lead her next. That night, as she lay in bed, Emma held the owl's feather close and smiled. The magical forest had taught her that she was strong, brave, and capable of amazing things. And now, she couldn't wait for her next adventure.